Story 1. They taught me a valuable lesson. You do not have to work hard if your father is rich. Story 2. I am a recently retired university professor with 40 years of experience working with young people. Those who succeeded often had family connections, perhaps 20 over the years. They did not need a college education. The others are doing okay in ordinary jobs, living ordinary lives like the rest of us. Story 3. He was a smart but lazy guy. It turned out he had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and depression. He had some nightmarish years, but afterward he became successful in his career and is living a good life. He still resents his unfulfilled potential and dreams. He is me. By the way, there are many people like me. I used to fantasize about establishing a foundation or something to help people like us reach their potential. If someone capable of doing this reads this, they can take that idea. Please do. Story 4. Some are very successful, others were saved by their family businesses, and others went abroad to start a new life but now suffer greatly. Story 5. One of my closest friends in college was super lazy. He often skipped class and slept. He somehow lasted a whole year and then dropped out. How is he doing now? He has a high-paying job with promotions and lives in a nice house with his hot wife and dog. Story 6. They were diagnosed late with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, narcolepsy, or another condition that affected their ability to achieve their goals. Not everyone fits within the standard deviation. We all aim towards some good. Story 7. They fell upward so forcefully that they might as well have had the power of flight. Story 8. I knew a man who woke and baked almost every day. This means smoking marijuana within minutes of waking up. He is now a tenured professor of mathematics at a very good university. Story 9. It depended on what they did not put effort into. There is a big difference between not working hard in a liberal arts major and in an engineering program. Story 10. I didn't work hard in college and even flunked out. I took a year off and earned 4 degrees. I have had a very successful law practice for 35 years as of this month. My roommate, by contrast, worked hard and constantly studied. He developed a drug addiction and lost his medical license. My point is that hard work in college is not necessarily a predictor of future success. Story 11. I did not work that hard in college or graduate school because none of it seemed like work. I have a 6-figure salary, a job I really enjoy, and I travel a lot. Different people pick things up at different speeds. If everything you study comes easily, there is no moral virtue in deliberately making it harder just so you can claim you worked hard. The outcome is what counts, not how intensely you labored. Story 12. I always think of my one red-headed roommate in college who was the world's biggest slacker. He was often a day late and $1 short on assignments, dropped courses that were too hard, and skipped study sessions to party or surf, while the other roommates were surprisingly disciplined and kept partying to Fridays and Saturdays. Only one of the 6 roommates did not land on his feet with a steady long-term job or career. I check his LinkedIn occasionally. He bounces between underpaying jobs that do not relate to his major and has gaps in employment. He likely struggles to pay rent because we live in an expensive area. So, unfortunately, I do think there is a clear correlation. Story 13. Well, here I am at 11 a.m. on a Friday, commenting on Reddit. Story 14. I have a successful career, a house, a wife, and children. Nobody asked me for my grade point average. See grades earned degrees. Story 15. They are an executive at Amazon because their mom and dad were friends with Jeff Bezos. Turns out that when you are a Nepo baby, you do not need to work hard. Story 16. A couple who work in blue-collar jobs earn more than I do despite my university degree. Laughing out loud. Story 17. They dropped out when their grades were poor to avoid wasting more money. One worked at a hotel for a decade before nepotism got them a great work-from-home job. The other is a server at a steakhouse who makes decent money and works only 3 days a week. They live together and split the rent, leaving them with a lot of extra money they spend on hobbies. Story 18. College grades aren't everything. They can help you get started, but they do not define your future. Some people barely graduated yet made lifelong friendships and were very personable. Those who built larger social networks have often done well. They created companies, partnered with school friends, or married into wealth. Hard work does not guarantee success. Story 19. Some people are extremely successful and others are not. I do very well for myself and I dropped out after less than 2 years. You do not need a degree to be successful in life. Story 20. I have been able to rely on my intelligence and my ability to complete work quickly under deadlines to succeed despite a poor work ethic. I am autistic and have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I have struggled greatly with anxiety and depression, so I try to give myself grace for not having the same work ethic as others. Story 21. I know people who have never set foot on a college campus, and they are doing well in life. Story 22. This reminds me of an old joke. What do you call the guy who graduated at the bottom of his class in medical school? Doctor. Story 23. Those who flunked or dropped out generally struggled after college. I know one person who dropped out, worked odd jobs for years, then returned to earn a nursing degree at the age of 30. She is doing well now. Those who managed to finish their degree despite low effort are doing fairly well. Many corporate jobs are well suited to people who prefer low-effort work. I fall into this category. My job involves 1 to 2 hours of actual work and 2 to 6 hours of meetings, administrative tasks, and small talk. I enjoy it. Story 24. Many of them are well off, actually. Turns out it is who you know, not what you know. Being socially adaptable is a very important skill set. Story 25. He is now an aerospace engineer doing just fine. It is me. I am a person. Story 26. Hey, it's me. I'm a senior financial analyst. I have a wife, children, a dog, a cat, several smaller animals, and a mortgage. While I did not work hard in college, I passed my classes and graduated on time. I later attended graduate school to earn my Master of Business Administration, where I worked hard. Story 27. Podcaster and high-ranking official in the current administration. Story 28. In my case, I dropped out of high school and earned a general educational development certificate. I then attended college but left before graduating. I lived my 20s to the fullest, traveling, exploring the arts, reading, and pursuing creative projects. I settled down in my early 30s. I became an executive at 41 and chief operating officer at 48. I left the company to travel more with a larger budget than before. I then took a different chief operating officer role for 3 years. I am now semi-retired and working on my first novel. I have always worked and will continue to work on the things that matter: innovation, creativity, spirituality, and human connection. I have not always been duped, and I think that is what makes me different. For what it is worth, I grew up in public housing in an inner city. My mother received welfare. When I calculate all that the government provided through poverty programs and compare that to the taxes I have paid through payroll, property, and sales, the government has come out ahead by a wide margin. Story 29. I did not work hard at any level of school. I would come in, ace the test, and leave. I never did homework. I had a C average, but I did not value the evaluation of my abilities because I knew I was gifted. My mother signed me up for the Scholastic Assessment Test without telling me because I was not going to do it, and I scored 2,300 when the maximum score was 2,400, without any preparation. College was the same. I coasted on my ability to recall information nearly perfectly and on an understanding of testing. Multiple choice questions are 50-50 at worst because you can eliminate answers or work backwards from the options. I did not use my degree. Now I own and operate a restaurant, make 6 figures, and enjoy my life. I am 30 years old. I have always invested since I was 12, so I made a lot of money by my late 20s, even though I worked minimum wage jobs. A chef friend and I went 50-50 on a place and have been running it for 2 years, making a good profit and keeping plenty in the bank for dry spells. It really depends on why a person was not trying. I know tryhards who were straight-A students who are now strung out on drugs and couch hopping. I know a man who dropped out of high school to start a mechanic apprenticeship, and he is a millionaire from good investing and saving. Intelligence quotient and school results are poor indicators of success. Story 30. Most went back to the old hometown and became the status quo. Story 31. I dropped out, but I am finally just barely making six figures. Took a while. There were a couple of false starts, but it worked out in the end. Story 32. That was me. I dropped out after my first year, found a job moving equipment in an aero engine overhaul plant, and worked my way up. Story 33. Most of them stayed where they intended to be. We attended college part-time as apprentices. They continued working as vehicle technicians. Story 34. I am that guy, a 57-year-old man, and it is interesting to see attention deficit hyperactivity disorder diagnoses here. I suspect I may have attention deficit disorder, now included under attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, though I am far from hyperactive. For what it is worth, I have had an interesting, if not stellar, career in user experience and plan to retire early. I guess I have mostly figured out how to work around it. Strangely, I am notably disciplined in my routines, such as practicing piano, finishing large projects, and working out, which are things I care about. Story 35. I failed out of college and am now working in sales. I make more than I would have with my major. Story 36. I was an art student in an undergraduate program and later in a specialized 3-year intensive program. Many of my classmates did not apply themselves or work hard to improve their craft. Almost none of them worked in the field, and some ended up at paint and sip studios. They repeatedly showed they could not build a portfolio or meet deadlines, even in the supportive environment of school. They never came close to obtaining a commercial art job. Story 37. They rode on the coattails of hard workers in group projects, getting the same grade despite contributing nothing, and now do the same in the corporate world. Story 38. I dropped out several times, learned a trade, and I am doing great. Story 39. Still not working hard somewhere else at an average job. Story 40. Of my 5 friends who did not finish college, one sells cell phones at a mall kiosk and managed to buy the kiosk. He also plays in a band. One discovered a career in sales and is now in a senior role in the tech industry. He is definitely a millionaire. One started a bakery and I think it recently celebrated its 20th year. One began in customer support and is now a manager. The other is taking care of elderly relatives, an uncle and an aunt. He went back and completed a 2-year nursing program. So they mostly landed okay. Not all of them are wealthy, but they are employed, have families, and are doing well. Story 41. They are mostly doing fine. I am one of them and I am currently running a successful business. How you perform in school is not necessarily a great indicator of later success. Story 42. My friend and I barely earned a 3.0 grade point average in our major. If we had not reached that mark, our careers in accounting would have stalled. Story 43. He was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder 5 years after finishing college. He is still doing better than most of his graduating class. He wastes some company time every day on Reddit. Story 44. It's a mix. Most are living paycheck to paycheck. Some can only keep a job for a short period before being let go, and the rest are doing well. Story 45. They all ended up earning far more than I did because of connections and different passions. One appeared on a television fishing show after college. I do not remember whether it was on Discovery or National Geographic. Another is now the chief executive officer of a company, and the third is a director of a global team. Story 46. One became a real estate agent, joined a multi-level marketing cult, and is thriving, by which I mean they exploit their family for pennies. One is now a project manager at a large corporation. He is wealthy, but his life revolves around the company day and night, with no real social life outside of work. One moved to Alaska, started a family, and inherited land from his partner's family. He seems happy and enjoys life there. Then there's me. I dropped out after my sophomore year and now work at a warehouse that pays decently and offers great benefits. Story 47. I dropped out. I was a C and D student when I attended. Apparently it was not that I could not work hard. It was that college wanted me to work hard in subjects I was not interested in. I stumbled into technology a couple of years after I would have graduated. I got lucky and was given opportunities. Story 48. That was me. Hi. I had undiagnosed bipolar I disorder in college. I flunked out hard. I had some really great semesters, but for the most part one was dealing with episodes I didn't understand and was either too depressed to do the work or too unbothered and manic to care. I am a marketing executive in product marketing. I am medicated and stable. I think I did okay. Story 49, he dropped out, but became an engineer anyway. I don't know if that's impressive or scary. He is me. Turns out I just needed Adderall. Story 50. I knew one person who was always late to class, didn't put as much work into group projects, but was smart enough to pass. Despite having a computer science degree from 25 years ago and living in the Bay Area, he is unemployed with no real motivation. He worked about 2/3 of his adult life, which means he has been unemployed for the other third. He currently lives at home after exhausting most of his savings, renting in San Francisco. Since he has no spouse or children and has free rent, he does little with his time. He complains that his life is going nowhere, talks a big game about doing X, Y, or Z, then when push comes to shove, uses his intelligence to create elaborate excuses for why he cannot. Another guy was interesting. He was much smarter than me but used his intelligence as an excuse not to go to class. In the dorms, we would wake him up so we could go to dinner. He failed out of the electrical engineering and computer science program, took the 8-year plan to graduate with a liberal arts degree, then moved back home and opened a car stereo shop, which was his passion. Near the end, he became one of those people who were too old to be at college parties but still attended them. When he graduated, we met for the last time. I was 4 years into my career, and talking to him felt strange because we were at different stages of life. He was the smartest, funniest person you could meet. He is not homeless, but he should be worth tens of millions of dollars now with a big house and family. Story 51. I had a large keystone project for my engineering degree. One student in the group habitually left in the middle of the day to go drinking while we were pulling all-nighters, never finished his tasks, and was generally disliked by the rest of the team. Somehow he managed to graduate mostly by cheating his way through exams. Last I heard, he was working the front desk at a motel. Story 52. It depends on what you mean. The people who skipped class and spent their time gaming, drinking, or using drugs were almost all gone by sophomore year. They either dropped out during freshman year or were suspended or expelled for poor academic performance by the end of the year. Those who did just enough to avoid academic probation might be considered less hardworking compared with those who graduated with honors. The main person I know who was like that got a job in accounting, married, and bought a house. Not the worst outcome. Story 53. They are happy living their best lives. College is a life ruiner, a friendship ender, a dream crusher. I regret going. Story 54. Every person I knew who went to college is doing better now than everyone I knew who did not go. That was 20 years ago. Everyone who did not go is struggling financially and thinks they know more about the world than we do from joint photographic experts group images on Facebook. Story 55. I don't know. I worked very hard in college and got burnt out. I still finished with good grades. Unfortunately, my idealistic and naive self majored in humanities and fine arts. I am not destitute, but I am not doing anything with my years of study. Story 56. She did not graduate, could not hold steady employment, and still has significant student loan debt. She eventually obtained a cosmetology license and is barely scraping by as a single mother of 2. Story 57. It was me. I was smart, but I did not grow up in a home that taught discipline or focus. My parents did not teach me much of anything, really. I was put on academic probation and dropped out of community college. My dad passed away and I took some of the money left to me and left. I lived on my own for around 2 years. I learned a lot about life and myself, and it was difficult. I even went abroad for a bit. I also gained a lot of confidence and the knowledge that no matter what life brings, I can figure it out. After that, a few essays did not seem so bad. I came back home, returned to college, and earned straight A's except in math. I did not enjoy math. I made the dean's list and joined some honor societies. I eventually earned an associate degree in Spanish, got married, had children, and life got in the way for a bit. I am 39 now, and I finally went back. I am taking online classes through Utah Valley University, yes, that one. I am still earning straight A's. I should have my bachelor's degree next summer and will probably pursue a master's degree. I am glad I waited a few years. I have a solid job now, and I actually know what I want to do with my life, which makes school easier. It also helps that I am not partying and trying to get laid all the time. Story 58. One took his own life. Another lives paycheck to paycheck doing various construction jobs. Another had several driving under the influence arrests and cannot keep a job. Everyone I know who worked hard in college is gainfully employed and doing well. Even if they are not wealthy or do not have the career they had hoped for, they are stable and others would consider them successful. Story 59. One of them, who dropped out, is now the most successful and wealthiest person in our friend group. The others were rich kids, so their families got them high-paying jobs. Story 60. I did not work very hard in college. I studied animation because I wanted to make stop-motion films, but I quickly discovered the university animation program was poor. I did the minimum needed to earn decent grades, took advantage of the few good opportunities they offered, and got lucky when I learned about a small independent stop-motion studio an hour from my home. I interned there the summer after my junior year and was hired full-time during my senior year. I learned what I actually needed to know and gained valuable relevant experience. I am doing about as well as possible in this industry. I have worked on some amazing projects, but I am often unemployed because of the industry's nature. I am fortunate to have a supportive spouse with a much more stable job. Story 61. That would be me, a C student. Things turned out fine, not stellar, but I am satisfied. From my career, I got what I put into it, and having the degree made all the difference. Story 62. Some people I knew struggled after school, while others made it work without a college degree. This showed me that discipline matters in the long term and that college habits often carry over into later life. Story 63. There is one person I sat next to in the first-year introduction class. I sometimes run into them on campus. I am in my fourth year while they are still in their second year. Story 64. They joined the army after realizing their degree was useless. I am him. Story 65. The professors mostly seem to get rewarded for that, laughing out loud. Story 66. As far as I know, he is getting gray hair and has never moved out of his parents' house. The only job he has been able to keep is a janitor position his church gave him out of pity. Heaven only knows what will happen to him when his father dies. He cannot take care of himself. Story 67. I did not work hard in college, but I graduated. Now I am earning my master's degree 20 years later, and I have a 4.0 grade point average. I have a job that will be replaced by artificial intelligence, so I am switching fields and earning a degree in clinical mental health counseling. It is amazing how caring about what you are learning can change your life. Story 68. Reading these comments reveals common themes. Some people should look up what a twice exceptional mind is and then compare and contrast autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and giftedness. Thrive Mind has a helpful video on the topic. Gifted people and twice exceptional individuals are particularly susceptible to depression and anxiety. A good therapist who understands giftedness can be essential for managing expectations and addressing the specific stress these individuals often experience. Story 69. As for me, I own my house, which is more than many people can say, so I guess I am doing pretty well. Story 70. They are doing much better than I am. Laughing out loud. I picked the wrong career. Story 71. His mother got him a cushy job in human resources thanks to her communications degree. He makes a lot of money at a big tech company and has a trust fund. I just went to his wedding, which I imagine cost at least $200,000. And watched a slideshow of him and his new wife traveling the world in their 20s. Life is not fair, but I still love him. Story 72. They dropped out and ended up working minimum wage jobs. Some of them even enlisted in the military. Story 73. Most of them messed around. Their parents helped pay their bills, rent, and wedding expenses. Around 2015, they got average jobs, took advantage of the Great Resignation to move into higher positions, and are now making more than me. But they are deep in debt and have poor lifestyle habits, so I will still end up with the win. Story 74. I did not work hard in 2000, did not hold a job until 2009, and failed out of university in 2012. It turned out I had been depressed all my life and also have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, autism, and a schizoid personality disorder. I tried to make a living from my art for a few years, then moved into technical support and advanced my career. It may be almost too late to try for a family and children. I am not very stable, and I think I should not bring children into this world. Story 75. I dropped out of college and earn 1/3 of what I would with a degree doing the same work. I also have to leave specialized tasks and perform manual labor. I have no real credentials because I work for a very small company with no opportunities for advancement and no way out without taking several steps backward. I should have stopped drinking and focused on my studies. Overall, I am all right. I am grateful for the education I received because my peers are physically worn down. Story 76. He skated through college but did not get a job after graduation. He thought he was applying as hard as he could, but that was not entirely true. He had plenty of time for video games and for spending time with his girlfriend while living at home. His first internship came 6 months after college, even though many classmates had done internships during college and obtained jobs. The internship was a disaster. It did not lead to a full-time position and did not change his career outlook. He was not ambitious enough to find work there, and he was not given much to work on. He finally got a real job 6 months later in another state, but the structure was poor and his work ethic was weak. He was let go about a year later, just a couple of months before he and his wife would have celebrated their first anniversary. They were both far from home. More earnestly than before, he started looking for a new job. One of the founders of his previous company was friends with a person who was hiring for the same role, and the founder put in a good word for him. The new job clicked, and he and his wife decided to move home. He took a new job there but was laid off after 4 months. His wife was pregnant. He applied for many jobs, landed on his feet, and then was laid off again a couple of years later because of coronavirus disease 2019. He found another job. Years passed, they had another child, and he is doing well now. Pro tip: do not ignore connections you can make in college through internships or other relevant experience. They are not a guaranteed path to employment, but they help. Story 77. I do not know anyone who did not work hard in college. Maybe I ran with a different crowd than most. I knew one person who strategically skipped any class that did not require attendance, but that did not mean he was not hardworking. He aced most of his classes and was a very fast programmer. I have no doubt he did well in life. Story 78. Most people end up fine. College effort rarely determines success in the real-life grind. Story 79. You may want to be more specific. I did not work very hard in college, but I have done quite well for myself. The same was true of my roommates. I would not describe us as heavy partiers. We still did well in our courses, although we did not spend countless hours studying. Students who only partied, rarely attended class, and repeated courses have not fared as well. Story 80. I lost contact with them. Most people I knew in the first semester dropped out, and the trend continued until the final year. Story 81. I had no idea. No one in my science, technology, engineering, and mathematics classes made it through by slacking off, and I was far too busy to pay attention to what students majoring in communications and business were doing. Story 82. That person was me. It turned out I didn't like college or the college to corporate pipeline. I dropped out and enlisted. After that, I became a corporate pilot, and now I'm a career firefighter in New York City. It worked out fine for me. I wasn't lazy. College just wasn't for me. Story 83. I am doing fine, everyone. Hard work is for suckers. Being likable is way more important than education these days. Story 84. Many of my family members. My brother hated college and dropped out, but he joined the Navy and is doing very well. My cousin started failing because he was more focused on partying, and his life went downhill. He was very smart, had so much potential and a full scholarship, and now he works as a cashier at a gas station and often says he hates his life, laughing out loud. Story 85. I had a few smart Middle Eastern friends who made a fortune with Bitcoin. They invested in Bitcoin in high school because their families had money. One friend bought more than 10 Bitcoins when he started high school. Now he is in Dubai, and I have not seen him on social media in 4 years. Story 86. I had a buddy who smoked regularly. He started in 6th grade. I distanced myself because we were very young. In high school, he took all honors and advanced placement classes. His ritual was smoking before every major test or exam. He went to Yale and graduated. Story 87. I am a department chair and a full-time faculty member at a college. You do not necessarily have to work exceptionally hard to get good grades. A lot depends on your degree, your writing ability, and your capacity to retain information. I do not think I worked particularly hard as an undergraduate. I have 3 graduate degrees in 3 different fields from 3 different universities. The degree I had to work hardest for is not in the discipline I teach. My ex-husband is a surgeon. People forget that a person can become a doctor of medicine. You can be very successful in many fields with a C average. Most employers never ask for a transcript. Story 88. I got a great job in information technology and have worked for the same company for 25 years. Story 89. I earned a 2.6 grade point average in communications. I went to college because it was what you did and did not really grow up until about age 28 or 29. I own a business and work 40 to 50 days per year. So not bad. Story 90. I work a minimum wage job now and hate my life every day. I will never forgive myself. I'm sorry you're feeling this way. If you are thinking about harming yourself, please contact emergency services or a crisis line right now. In the United States, dial 988. If possible, tell someone you trust how you are feeling or seek professional help. Story 91. One is a college professor, one is an electrical engineer, I am a geologist, one is a surgeon, and the rest are middle managers. Success in the classroom is not indicative of success in the real world, and no one, perhaps 1% of companies or positions, cares about your grades once you start applying for jobs. Story 92. My college roommate did not attend many lectures and spent more time trying to find ways to cheat on tests rather than studying the material. He dropped out of engineering and became a police officer. He is likely set to retire soon, assuming 20 years is the standard retirement period for police officers in New York. Story 93. One person built an e-commerce business and is now a millionaire. He barely passed high school and did not go to college. Another joined a random startup and is now a co-founder and nearly a millionaire. One has a simple life with a wife and a house and is in their mid-20s. Another is jobless because of layoffs and is living with his parents. I am struggling to make ends meet and regret moving out of my parents' home because the software engineering market is terrible. Most of the others lead basic lives but somehow own expensive trucks and nice apartments while earning about $15 an hour. Story 94. I do not keep up with most of the people I went to university with. One man was not particularly academic. He barely graduated and now owns a business unrelated to his degree. He is doing well. He has a nice house and drives a very nice car, so good for him. Story 95. It turns out I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I went back to school at 28 and it took until I was 30 to get that sorted out. My career is going great now. Story 96. I went to law school. Turns out the law school admission test mattered way more than my undergraduate grades. Story 97. One is currently in jail for sexual assault. He took advantage of intoxicated women in college. Another is a multimillionaire who created his own tech company with help from his investor father and sold the company during the rise of Nvidia. He was always smart but clearly did not care for university. The third is me. I miraculously finished college despite being the weed burnout loser you see on every campus and in every college movie. I failed miserably as a financial advisor and made multiple suicide attempts. I overcame alcohol and drug addiction and worked as a professional beekeeper before the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic ended that work. I am currently a financial analyst getting my life together and have been 3 years sober. Story 98. It is me. I did not study. I never received anything lower than an A-. I am a professor now, but I am very poor. Story 99. We had one guy who always tried to do the bare minimum he could. C grades get degrees was his favorite saying. He did not graduate. Story 100, depends. Everyone is different. For some, college simply was not their calling. Others will never work hard. I know a man who owns multiple properties and makes six figures. He dropped out and was arrested for selling marijuana in college. He now earns more than almost all of us. Another acquaintance failed accounting 5 times and is now in an up-and-coming local band, which led to a marketing job in the industry as his day job. Then there are friends who did not work hard. Most hold a car sales job for about 6 months at a time before being fired for not showing up or being late. Long story short, college does not automatically determine your future. But if you are going to college, do work hard. Paying college tuition and not going to class is like paying for a 5-star hotel and sleeping on the bench outside the lobby. Story 101. Those I knew who graduated from college, by and large, did quite well for themselves. Many of them worked hard. One of my golf teammates did not work hard at all and had his mother do his schoolwork. To this day, I do not know how he graduated because he had a low intelligence quotient. He did get a job as a college golf coach, though he was not a great golfer, and he probably earns a 6-figure salary. Another friend was somewhat smarter but not very bright. He did just enough to graduate and became a gym teacher. He likely does not earn much, but is probably content with his life. Another friend, a fraternity brother, was intelligent but did not work hard in college. He now works on cruise ships, owns a nice house, and seems content with his life and his job. Story 102. I was an English major in college. I would not say I avoided hard work, but despite the effort I put in, my degree did not have clear prospects and I had no plan for it. With an English degree, you either become a teacher, teach abroad, or become a professor, and I did not want any of those. Beyond that was a strange process of trying to sell my degree for various positions that may or may not value it. After 2 years of mediocre jobs, I finally got into state government in a position I thought I would never hold. Accountant. I am terrible at math. I barely passed college algebra 1 and 2, and yet here I am balancing accounts. Life is weird. Story 103. I skated every day during my freshman and sophomore years. I dropped out and worked at a sandwich shop, where I realized it was not the life I wanted. I began studying at night and applying intensely for roles. I have been a firewall engineer for the past year and am now entering my 2nd year. Story 104. I failed out of college twice due to a lack of ambition and motivation, and because of excessive drinking, marijuana use, and casual sexual relationships. I became a chef so I could continue that lifestyle until my partner became pregnant. I didn't have health insurance, so I enlisted in the military. Now I'm out of the service, married to the restaurant server I had a child with. We have a couple more children, and I work as a federal employee in an office. In the end, everything kind of worked out. Story 105. They turned out to be reasonably successful, well-balanced people. Meanwhile, the overachievers who gave it 110% in college are now miserable workaholics with no social life. Some things do not change. Story 106. I never worked hard in college despite attending a difficult school. Luckily, I take to education naturally and do not require much studying or time to complete assignments. What happened to me? Well, I have a family and no debt. Story 107. I did not work hard in college. I had a lot of fun, made many lifelong friends, and earned a 2.6 grade point average, knowing that as long as I earned a degree, the grades did not matter in the slightest. I got an internship in my desired industry, worked very hard, made good connections, and now have a job that I am skilled at and that pays well. I have a wife, a child, and a house in an excellent neighborhood. I take several domestic and a couple of international vacations each year. I have decent savings. Life is good. Story 108. Most of my university weeks started with 5 days of studying and later reduced to 2 days of studying for a couple of hours each. Story 109. Big-time salaries and high-ranking titles are all due to connections such as fraternities, clubs, and so on. Story 110. After I got my anxiety and depression under control, life got significantly better. Story 111. He is now a lawyer. When I first knew him in college, he dropped out in his junior year with a grade point average below 1.0. He spent a year finding himself by skydiving during the day and drinking beer at night, then showed up to law school confidently and aced it. Story 112. The irony is that they are now presenting themselves as experts in an area where they have no expertise. Story 113. I was someone who did not work hard in college. I dropped out twice but eventually earned enough credits for an associate degree in psychology. I work in an office in an entry-level position after getting in through a connection. I made myself useful and have moved up steadily since then. I am not qualified for much higher, but I am happy with where I ended up. I am unhappy about the student loans I still owe, but I am more than halfway finished paying them off. Story 114. They graduated and found jobs. Very few people I knew in college worked especially hard. You do what you have to do to graduate and then move on with your life. Story 115. He took 5 years to finish college despite pursuing an easy major and receiving full financial support from his parents. He spent his entire time in college partying with a fraternity, something he took great pride in. He graduated with the minimum grade point average required to earn his degree. He failed officer candidate school twice and received scathing reviews from peers and superiors. Each time, he was rated last in classes of several hundred people. There should not be any shame in failure, but failing to that degree and then refusing to learn from it is, in my opinion, shameful. He quit his first professional job in disgust after receiving consistently poor performance reviews. He has worked multiple dead-end professional jobs since then and has not been promoted at any of them. To remedy his failure to advance in the business world, he applied to business school multiple times with an essay that looked like it had been written by a third grader. He was summarily rejected by all of them. Most of the stories here say that hard work in college is not always necessary, but this person's example has always stood out to me. He never learned how to learn. He never developed critical thinking, something he could have gained from college if he had bothered to make the effort. Story 116. I don't know. I don't socialize with them or with many people, really. Story 117. A lot of them are doing fine. Some are not so fine. It is a wash. I, a 36-year-old man, worked fairly hard in college, but I realized that spending 2 to 3 hours for a B was preferable to spending 8 to 10 hours for an A. After that, I stopped caring so much about grades. I saw college as a buffet of knowledge. I took classes that had nothing to do with my major and read books that had nothing to do with my classes. College, to me, was about becoming a person who learns to love learning. I graduated with a 3.4 grade point average and a 3.8 weighted average for my major, but I hope students know that after college almost nobody asks about or cares about your grade point average or accomplishments. The cliches are true. College is about experimenting, finding yourself, and learning how to be someone who enjoys learning for the rest of your life. All the career-oriented stuff can be accomplished with certifications and supplemental degrees, but undergraduate studies are for learning what you want to do and why you want to do it. Story 118. One of them ended up being my boss at another office. When he was promoted, I tried so hard not to say I still remember when Dr. J told you to shut up. I worked under him for about a year before I could not take it anymore. Last I heard, he has gotten divorced and remarried. Fuck off forever, Zippy. Story 119. They spent their time networking while at school and ultimately became much more successful than I am. Story 120. I dropped out and now earn $450,000 working in big technology. I did not receive financial help from my parents and I paid my own college loans despite not having a degree. Story 121. I was placed on academic probation and never returned to that school. I became involved with drugs but later became sober. I now have a successful career and am the director of a treatment program. I am married, have children, and am happy. Story 122. I went to college with Tom Sizemore, who frequently used marijuana at the time. Story 123. It depends on why they did not work hard. Those who slacked because they had backup plans, such as wealthy family connections, are doing fine. Those who slacked because of unjustified ego or simple laziness are generally not doing as well. Story 124. That is my friend Dave. He mostly smoked marijuana. He is an engineer and is very charming. He earns $200,000 and is married to someone who earns the same. Story 125. My first attempt at college was a mess. It was more about socializing and gaining experience. Now I am back in school in my mid-30s, and this time it is going great. Story 126. That is me. I got a job as a software engineer. To be fair, I had already worked as a programmer before college and had taught myself most of it. I went to college to get the degree. Story 127. Most went on to mundane lives with mediocre results. There were some outliers on both sides. Those who worked hard, got on the dean's list, and graduated with top honors but later flamed out and died by their own hand, and those who flunked out and are now millionaires. Back when they were selling college spring break girls gone wild videos on late-night infomercials, I used to wonder what happened to a lot of those girls. Did they graduate? What was their major? What jobs did they end up getting? I also watched terrible marketing like television ads and copy, and asked who was brain dead enough to think a commercial was a winner, what the losers were like, and how stupid they could be. And then I realized that they were probably the same people. Story 128. It is a mixed bag. Some went into highly specialized fields and are doing well. Others went into the trades and run their own businesses. Some are caught in the yearly cycle of layoffs and are barely earning as much as I do as a security guard. Story 129. I now make $210,000 a year. I work much harder for a paycheck than I did for grades. Story 130. That was my friends and me. We are all normal working-class schlubs. All of us work in our degree fields, which is good. When you finish school, no one cares about the grades you received. They only care that you have a degree. I have literally been hired for jobs just because of the school I attended. No one cared that I was getting all C grades there. Story 131. He worked hard outside of college. He made money trading and selling in-game items and co-founded a successful game. Last I checked, he is living the high life with a trophy wife. Story 132. I am in a reasonably well-paying corporate job. I sometimes work hard, but most of my effort goes toward making other tasks easier. Story 133. There is no typical outcome. Some students had advantages and were never at risk. Others learned little and emerged burdened by debt with a relatively useless credential, if they graduated at all. A few will flourish or fail despite their college experience. Story 134. They dropped out and still live with their parents in their late 20s or 30s. Story 135. I have a six-figure job and a sweet house with a water view. To be clear, I didn't slack off in college. I wouldn't say I worked hard. I went to class, completed assignments, and studied a bit before exams. Story 136. Two of them are currently not in education, employment, or training. Two suffered life-changing injuries. One was a natural-born prodigy who graduated with a 4.0 grade point average despite playing video games all day and is now a professor of number theory. Story 137. I am one of them. I am doing pretty well, all things considered. I suffered during the Great Recession and then recovered. Now I have a house and 2 cars in the driveway, so it could be a whole lot worse. Full disclosure. I am just good at school. My employer funds various degrees and I have begun collecting them like they are Pokemon. Story 138. Prostitutes, male and female, did not matter. It is a sick world. Story 139. He was a vice president at a company for 17 years and did not come from a wealthy family. The man who worked hard in college and comes from a wealthy family earns a below-average salary as a corporate employee. Story 140. I'm doing okay. I'm mainly living at home to save money. It's similar to many people who worked hard and were honest. Those who were truly successful both worked hard and were lucky. Story 141. I barely studied in college, earned a 2.8 grade point average, and spent most of my time partying. I got a sales job in Silicon Valley, and 4 years later I was admitted to a top 10 Master of Business Administration program with a full ride. I had a great graduate management admission test. Score, strong work experience, and good essays, so they did not care about my undergraduate record. To be fair, it was the #1 public college in the United States. I did not study much in the graduate program because there were no grades. Now, 12 years later, I am middle management in technology. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.